What's up, and welcome back to the greatest teacher of all time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color to highlight their philosophies, strategies, and personalities. Today, I've got Heather. What's up, Dr. Michelle?
How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And so Dr. Michelle, you used to be a elementary school teacher for 13 years. Now you're in higher ed, and now you're actually working as a coach for teachers of color,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to talk to you because your Instagram page is really inspiring. You have a lot of tips and tricks for teachers that are just really interesting, and I want to talk to you a little more about them.
I would love that. Thank you.
Let's do it. So the first one, I want to talk about this microaggressions post.
So I've been meaning to talk to you about something. Microaggressions. Go ahead, settle in, get some coffee, grab a snack. This is going to be good. First, let's not mince words. Microaggressions are the sometimes intentional or non-intentional derogatory interactions or behaviors that communicate a specific bias against a marginalized group. The difference between microaggressions and overt racism is that often microaggressions are unintentional, but can be just as insidious. Here are some microaggressions I've had to experience as an Arab American woman. What's your nationality? I'm American. No, really, where are you from? When are you gonna grow your Arab nose? When my husband grows a beard, it just makes him look like a terrorist. I wouldn't tell other teachers you have a doctorate in education. It's just gonna intimidate them and they're not gonna want to talk to you. I'm sorry, but you're just not brown enough to work with teachers of color. Heather, that's a white girl's name. Maybe if your name reflected who you were, you could publish a book. I'm sorry, but women can't ask for more salary and higher education. We're perceived as demanding and overbearing. You just have to prove your worth. These are the microaggressions that I've had to deal with. What are some microaggressions that you have to deal with? Comment below and follow for part 2 of microaggressions.
So what inspired you to make this?
What inspired me to make it really is, well, part of it comes from my own personal experience in dealing with some things that have come up in my career and continue to come up, in professional spaces around microaggressions. But I also know in speaking with other teachers of color and teachers of color in the field, doing interviews with them and in my own research, that microaggressions is an additional burden that teachers of color have to face in the classroom. And so I wanted to make it a part of the conversation. In retrospect and reflecting on that original post that I put up there, my perspective has kind of changed a little bit. It is a very, when dealing with microaggressions, it is a very personal thing. But I think continually to going to normalizing it and making it a conversation topic helps not only teachers of color deal with it and kind of feel like they're not alone in it, but it also helps the broader public talk about these things and kind of creates a platform to have these discussions, because ultimately education, when you're a classroom, when you're a teacher in the classroom, there isn't a lot of time and space to talk about things that are impacting you emotionally, and microaggressions are huge. They can have a huge impact on you, your well-being, your sense of efficacy, your how you feel about your effectiveness in the classroom, you're working with your students. And so because it has such a high impact on the teacher, it's going to ultimately impact the students. And so just continually to revisit the topic and incorporate it into the discourse that we have around teachers of color in the classroom, I think is important.
Yeah, definitely. Can you maybe go into a little more about that? How do you think it impacts, or how do you think it impacts the students if the teacher is receiving it from maybe like other
The thing
admin or other teachers?
That's a great question. The thing about microaggressions is it undercuts. I think it's insidious. It's insidious. Is insidious the right word? It like gets under microaggressions really get under your skin, and they kind of cut away from your feelings of effectiveness, and they feed into your self doubt, and they often feed into shame, which is like a pretty heavy topic. And because of that, if you're a teacher and you don't feel like you can bring your A game every day, if you don't feel like you're supported, if you feel like people are talking about you or undervaluing you, when you present in front of your students, that's going to be that perception of yourself is going to be transmitted. And I don't know about you, but when I don't feel good about myself, I don't operate at full capacity. So so there's that. I mean, I'm just speaking, on a personal level. It's like I recently had this experience, and it triggers all of the self-doubt and, imposter syndrome. People talk about, that's another topic that's really common right now. It triggers all of those things. And when you have teachers of color that are continually in a position to prove themselves, like they can't just show up and do their job. They have to show up and be the best at instruction. Make sure their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed. um, that in itself takes a lot of energy. And then when you have someone that's, undercutting you and saying, well, you just got that position because, you're African American, or you're a woman, or, are you sure you want to do that with students? Or just little nitpicky things that people say that undercut you, that oftentimes are related to how you identify as a teacher of color, or how they perceive you as a teacher of color. um, that impacts who you are, and how you present in the classroom, and whether you're willing to take risks. If you're not feeling confident, you're not going to take risks as a teacher. And every great teacher knows that taking risks is how you become better at your craft, whether you're a student or a teacher. So um, risk taking is a huge part of learning, and you're not in a position to do that if you don't feel supported by your admin, your colleagues. And it starts with yourself, like, how you how you feel about yourself, and supporting yourself in intentional ways. And I talk about that all day long on my Instagram feed.
Yeah.
So
And it's great. Like, I really value that you do that. And I think all of it just comes back to this bigger conversation of like teacher mental health, right? And how it's like so important to make sure you stay on that and just, yeah, find ways to, I don't want to say deal with it, but I don't know. What would you say to that? Is it really finding ways to deal with it, or is it
it's about, I mean, I appreciate, I understand, like, dealing with it kind of feels like
like
another,
putting in the back seat or something, right?
yeah, it's almost like another backpack you have to carry, and it's there, and that's legitimate. But I think what is helpful for me in terms of how I frame it is advocacy. Like, how can you have to advocate for yourself? And that's like, I mean, especially teachers of color, but that's teachers right now. You have to advocate for yourself. You can't just show up and do your job. Like, if you're a long hauler, if this is the profession and you want to be in the classroom for 30, 40, how many ever years, um, you are going to have to do things to advocate for yourself. And that's like, you know, and it starts with mental health. It starts with, being strategic about what you stand up for, and what you push back on, and at your school site and staff meetings with your colleagues. Um, so it's really, for me, it's about advocacy. Um, and so that's kind of how I try to frame it, because I think your audience, like my audience, is, I'm trying to, the student, the teachers I want to support are the ones that want to stay in the profession, or that are struggling, but they don't believe, but they don't see any other way, outside of it, or they don't see the path. The path is, the path is too cloudy. And it's like, I really enjoy doing this. It's not about the students. It's about all this other drama that's happening around me. I hope I'm answering your question.
No, that's good. And I kind of want to get I like that how you're saying advocacy is the big way to do it, right? I want to talk about some of the actual ones you said in your video. So you said things like you get microaggressions like Heather being a white girl's name even though you're Arab American, right?
Mhm.
Or not
Yeah.
telling people you have a PhD because they might get intimidated, or you're not brown enough to work with teachers of color. How do you, I don't know if you want to be specific to yourself, but like what are some ways to advocate for yourself in those types of scenarios?
Um, that's a great question. Let's see. I think, um, what I have come to, yeah, that's a great question, because a part of this work is a lot of self work. And the conclusion I kind of came to is that I'm on a journey, and that, when people have said those things to me, they knock me off the train. Like, I'm on a path. I got into education for social justice that is unwavering. That's why I'm here. And I'm going to show up in this space who I am. And when people like say those kind of things, it knocks me off the train. It kind of pushes my identity. It pushes, okay, who are you again? Okay, reaffirming. Okay. you know, I have to determine what am I going to integrate, what am I going to integrate, and what am I going to push away and decide that that's not part of who I am, and that's okay, and that's on them, that's not on me, and I got to keep on. I'm on the train, my path. I got to keep my path. So so I guess it's a journey. It's a personal journey. Like, you know, to be super transparent, I've gone to therapy to kind of help process those kinds of comments because I do find them really derailing. Um, um, so there was something else I wanted to say about that, but I can't remember what it was right now. So yeah, I think it's about reaffirming who you are, I know what I want to think. I know what I want to say now. I think for me, it's like I a lot of you know, I get those microaggressions, and as I said, in some ways it's immobilizing. But I think for me, I always return to my experience, who I am, and the urgency around the issues that I feel strongly about. So in my mind, like my identity is kind of like over here, and it supports my work and informs my practice. But the real urgency is social justice issues, inequality. That my identity is like over here, but I'm here to do the work. So and you know, I'm might make mistakes. I might offend some people. You know, people are going to offend me. But together, we have to come together and move forward in this work. And that's the real issue here. You know what I mean? So that's what I keep on coming back to. Like I can't sit in fear. I have to move forward because I care too much about the world and, you know, the issues that are confronting us. And it does no good for me to feel, you know, feel weird because someone told me I'm a white girl. Like that doesn't help. I gotta just keep on moving forward.
Yeah, man, dude, Heather, thank you for sharing all that. Man, so I'll be honest, I don't like that answer because I'm so math minded where I wish there were a flow chart. I was talking to another teacher about this and being like culturally responsive, like diverse learning strategies and stuff like that, where I wish there was a if this, then that statement,
Yes.
right? But what you're saying, it's like everyone is dynamic, everyone's different. So I guess
Yeah.
it just goes in how important it is to really know yourself before you get to tackle these issues.
Yeah, you really have to you really do have to know yourself. And that's like, you know, in my first consulting business before COVID happened, um, you know, and I was coaching teachers, and perhaps in your same role you have this, that you come across this as well, because I know you're an instructional coach. But is the importance of purpose and identity. Purpose and identity. I go back to that all the time. In fact, I probably should be posting more about that. But just knowing who you are, because knowing who you are, who you are impacts everything that you do in the classroom, and it privileges all of your instruction and all the interaction and all the instructional decisions. And being aware of that, and looking at it objectively, can not only make you a better teacher, but it can help you process all of these things that are coming at you, um, negative or positive, and kind of put it in an objective light so that you can deal with it in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely,
Um,
definitely. Yeah. And man, so I know we're kind of touched on this already and like all these different variables and everything, but you are also a coach for teachers of color,
mhm.
right? Can you tell me more about that? Like, why specifically teachers of color?
um, oh my goodness, teachers of color. Um,
We're getting into it.
we're getting into it. So the reason why teachers of color is because they have some of the high burnout rates of all teachers. However, they have the potential to make the highest impact with their students. And not only is the potential there, but the research says that they do. They are essentially superpowers, and especially they're superheroes and they have superpowers. And that's kind of how I continually try to frame it, because it's easy to get bogged down with the burdens that, you know, being a color person sometimes, you know, you have to take on. But really, they are positioned to make the biggest gains with our students, especially when we're looking at student demographics across the United States. I mean, 50% of our students that we serve nationally are students of color, while only 19% of our teachers are teachers of color. And in some states, Quincy, they're literally zero. Like in some states on the East Coast, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but when I'm looking at the research, I'm like, how can you have like no people, no teachers of color in like Pennsylvania, or like zero? And like, and then we have our students in our community showing up that are quite diverse. And I'm not saying our white female counterparts can't show up and do great job. I'm not trying to dismiss their what they bring to the classroom. However, if you have a teacher of color that represents um, the population of students that you serve, they're going to be able to make connections that other teachers can't, and that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and this goes into our vocabulary word of the day, right? So you had another video, and it's about cultural synchronicity,
mhm.
right? And you say that's the idea that teachers of color better serve students of color because they understand their cultural experiences, right? So you kind of hinted at that before, but can you kind of expand on that? Like,
Yeah, so it's the idea that if you have um, a teacher that can relate to or represents the population that they're serving, they're in a better position to create culturally responsive instructions, because they understand the position that the students are in. On very simple terms, it's like if some of the best teachers are the ones that struggle the most in school because they know what it's like to struggle. You don't want someone to teach you physics that's like knows physics like that. You want someone to teach you physics that's struggled themselves because they were able to, um,
and that is so interesting because that's how I exactly see myself. Like I was terrible at math and science in school, but now that's what I'm doing.
yeah, no, totally me. I was like, I learned how to read very late in life, and not life, and like in fourth and fifth grade. Um, and that's why I think I'm such a good reading teacher. Like that's why I stayed in first and second grade so long, because I knew what it was like to struggle, and I was like, I'm not leaving you behind. I'm going to teach you how to read, and we're going to do it together. And it's the same thing. Um, it's the same thing for teachers of color. It's like it's being in Chula Vista, I work with a lot of dual immersion teachers. And when they're and I live in Chula Vista. It's 70% Latino. It's like 5 miles from the Mexican American border. Very huge Latino population down here. And when they're working with their students, it's like they feel like they're coming home. Like it's a very it can be a very affirming experience. Like you actually are teaching kids that reflect who you are, and you're speaking to them in your native language, which is a huge identity. The way you speak is a huge part of your identity. Um and so getting back to that cultural synchronicity piece, it's really important. And I think it's important that, like I said, bring it into the discourse. Let's be talking about it, because it's empowering. And I think part of the reason why I talk about those things, and I have that professor is in piece on my page or on my profile, is because I want to give teachers the language to talk about this and the awareness, and because it's empowering. I want them to feel empowered when they leave my page, like, yeah, and I'm doing this for my kids, and that privileges my students, because I know their experience, I know where they're coming from, I can speak to the parents in Spanish, I know what they're dealing with at home. And so, yeah.
Yeah, man, it makes me think that my personal experience, right? So I went to Morehouse College, which
Okay.
historically Black college, and there I got to see like professors who looked like me teaching me, and like it just made
Yes.
me feel better.
Yes.
But not only just like the professors on the higher ups, it also like my peers, right? It gave me a chance to see, oh, that's what another Black person's like, not just the ones I've been seeing on TV growing up in California. Like it's it's empowering.
Oh my
It really
gosh.
is.
No, yeah, I get it. No, yeah. Reflecting on that, yeah, because you grew up in California.
Yeah, Chino, California.
California.
Yeah. And so back to your clip you made on Instagram, right? So you said with this cultural synchronicity, it helps with students get higher academic performance, higher test scores,
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
Um
College attendance, everything.
yeah, and I want to ask, do you think the opposite is also true? Like, do you think white teachers are maybe better teachers for white students?
Man, that's a good question.
It makes you think, huh?
It does. I think it does. I think bottom line, if we kind of boil it down, bottom line is how are you connecting with your students? Like, what's the connection there? And if you have lived experience that your own students embody, the connection's a lot deeper, right? So if you have, um, if you have white female teachers that are working with the community, um, that is sharing some of their own same ideals, values, and lived experience, then that connection is going to be there. Um, but the thing about that is it's not as intentional. Like,
Yeah, I think
not
that's
as
the part.
intentional. Yeah, it's like the structures and the power and everything. The power is kind of already there to set them up for success. So that connection is less necessary, I think, if you're working with, you
Yeah,
know, predominantly white students and, white teachers. Less rides on that connection because the students show up with more prior experience, with more, I mean, the school's set up for them to succeed. So that connection carries less weight, I guess. That was a great,
yeah,
that was a great question, Quincy.
yeah, right. And I think that's true too. But also, they might. I'm just thinking out loud. They might be missing a crucial component to working with different types of people. Right? If I'm going back to my experience at Morehouse, right? Like, yeah, I'm around a lot of Black people. I know how to interact and connect to them. But also, a key thing I think they do is they show you, okay, this is what we're doing here, and this is how you work outside of here too.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, that's great.
yeah, they give you like that whole both sides experience. But I feel like the opposite of that, like the white teachers teaching other white students, I feel like, I don't know, they probably aren't as mindful to get that other side's experience.
No, they're not. No, um, I mean, I want to I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to downgrade or diminish.
I understand. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking from your
But
experience.
yeah, I mean, I know a lot of white female educators. They're doing a great job with culturally responsive pedagogy, and they also recognize I can't connect in the same way that someone from this community can connect. I mean, that's just it. It doesn't mean that they can't connect with their students in other ways. It doesn't mean that they can't advocate for their students, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, teachers of color need to be happening everywhere in all communities. Some of the people that I've interviewed have intentionally gone to, all white, predominantly white districts because that's where they got hired. And then they said, you know what, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be in this spot. I'm needed here too. Um, and so there's that. And then I've had other people that I've interviewed where being in that context just really like just shut them down. So
And I feel that from both ways, right?
yeah,
I was a Black teacher at a private school in California, all white demographics and everything, right? Or mainly white demographics. And I think I had an important role there because I got to show the white students, oh, that's what a Black person can be like,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
an adult Black male does not have to be in a gang. You don't got to talk with slang all the time, right? Like, yeah, I think that has an important role too.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Heather. Again, being so vulnerable with all this. I want to get into your role as a coach, right?
Hmm.
So another thing you do on your page is that you give a lot of different teaching tips, right?
Yes.
Some things like
Right.
yeah, I love it. Some things like practice deep breathing just to collect your thoughts and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
Why do you think it's important to share these on social media?
Again, I think it's important that we are talking about this. And I try to model a lot of this because I want to give other people permission to do the same for themselves. So, all those different strategies, one of the things, the initiatives, or one of the things that I really want to talk about and kind of showcase a lot is you don't have to do huge lifestyle changes to impact your mental health. And um, and I had through COVID, this was really just like highlighted, and we were kind of dealing with some things as a family. And I really, I'm a teacher, professor, so I just like, okay, let's read some books about it, right? So I have a high school daughter. We're both reading books about these different things that we're dealing with. Um, and I started to incorporate like these small things like deep breathing and journaling for 5 minutes. And I was like, wow, I literally did that for a minute and my mood has elevated. Like it does not take a lot. And I think, the highest sought after resource and education is time. People don't have time. And so one of my, big messaging points is literally 5 minutes. This is what I'm asking you to devote 5 minutes of your time to your mental health at any point during the day, preferably first thing in the morning. Prioritize it, um, and that's going to have an impact on you, and it's going to have a positive impact on you. And if you start with 5 minutes, hopefully it grows to more than that. But just that 5 minutes, um, that can be life changing. I can't say it's going to keep teachers in the profession, but I know from my own personal practice, it has changed, definitely my life for the better.
Yeah. And I think like everything on your page, nothing is in a vacuum, right? It's not only do what she says in this clip to help you. It's like, nah, you gotta take time
Yeah.
and like get the full range.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to present just lots of different things because everyone has different comfort levels and, just perhaps they're already doing something. It hasn't quite, doesn't quite work. And so, just keep it going. Just keep trying different things until they find something that works.
Yeah, yeah. And there's probably things that you or I probably haven't even thought of that may work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Again, Dr. Michel, thank you so much for this. I appreciate your insight on all things education, your experience with mental health, these microaggressions. They're all part of the reasons why I think you might be one of the greatest professors of all time.
Thank you. I love this. I love the podcast. I love the videos on YouTube, and just keep on doing it. It's a great service. These conversations are really important, and we need to just keep on showcasing and creating a platform so we can talk about these issues.
Yeah, thank you. That's what it's all about. And also about supporting and uplifting teachers too, right?
Yes.
So also with the support of Transcendence Children and Family Services, I want to present to you this $100 gift card for you to
What?
use with your class and students.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, of course. So yeah, after the cameras go off, I'll get your address and everything and figure out how to get this to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, thank you. You deserve it. Thank you to everyone else for watching The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color, tout their philosophies, strategies, personalities.